This is way worse than we thought. After a lot of concern about Karl-Anthony Towns and the way he's been playing recently and the New York Knicks struggles against good teams, that culminated into Jalen Brunson himself basically saying the Knicks are not where they want to be right now. Things are apparently not going to be getting better as the Knicks are dealing with some key injuries, and one that has not really been discussed that we're going to have to break down because it's clearly having a negative impact on the Knicks. What's up, guys? Welcome back to Knicks Digest. It's Chris here. Guys, I know I ask this all the time. I know it's in literally every video, but if you guys are enjoying the content, if you're part of that 67% who is watching these videos and are not subscribed, make sure to subscribe to the channel if you're enjoying this. If you want daily New York Knicks news, rumor reports, updates, we try to have fun on this channel as well. I know we're giving Knicks news and sometimes it's a little grim like this video, but I promise we're always going to have fun on the channel. Let's dive into it, guys. The New York Knicks, well, we know there's some injuries. OG Anunoby's been injured, but that seems like it's not too serious. Mitchell Robinson's been working back to try to play his first game this NBA season. And then also, the one that we have to talk about, Karl-Anthony Towns' hand. Karl-Anthony Towns against the Detroit Pistons a couple weeks back banged his hand against the backboard, and since then, it's safe to say that he has not been the same player. Since in the 9 games, since his thumb injury that he's appeared in, he's averaging 18 points per game, shooting 44.4% from the field, where he was averaging over 25 points per game at one point this season, getting 11.7 rebounds, which is still good, but lower than what he has been getting 3 assists, which is around the same, shooting 30% from the three-point line, and a true shooting percentage of only 52.1. Towns' numbers are down. He looks worse. Maybe it's a slump. Maybe his hand is injured. I mean, they said he was just going to have to play through the injury, and clearly it's having a negative impact on the way that Karl-Anthony Towns is playing basketball. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. That's just what's happening. Look, Karl-Anthony Towns is a phenomenal player this season, but if he keeps playing like this, the Knicks are in real trouble. I mean, we saw them get smacked around by Boston in a game where Luke Cornett held Karl-Anthony Towns to 9 points. Just an absolutely abysmal showing from Cat. And the Knicks, it's just another reason why they desperately need this man back in Mitchell Robinson. A career 8-8 guy who could help Towns on the rebounding and just take some pressure off Towns that if the Knicks don't have Towns in the lineup, they won't have to fear that their entire team's going to fall apart, especially without OG Anunoby as well. The Knicks' rim protection has gone away, and Towns is going to be weary of blocking shots with his right hand because of the fact that he has an injury in it. On top of all that, it means that Precious is in the starting lineup. Precious and Chu would either have to play a small ball 5, where the Knicks would have to insert someone else into the starting lineup like Deuce McBride, or the Knicks would start Ariel Hukporti, which I imagine is what they would do. And yes, Hukporti's good. I really like the way he's playing, but there is still some concern with him being a rookie and the New York Knicks being a contending team. So it is important to note that as well. I need to adjust this microphone. It's not in front of my face. But look, taking a look into things, Karl-Anthony Towns, he's had a phenomenal season. Still on the year, putting up 24 points per game, 13.5 rebounds, 3.3 assists, nearly 1 block per game, with a steal per game. His fouls per game are going down, shooting 53% from the field and 43% from three-point land. But with these numbers are going down a little bit, with the exception of the rebounding. I mean, Towns is putting up still 53 and 42, or really 53 and 43, which is very nice, but that was 55 and 45, and now with this hand injury, it's clear that Karl-Anthony Towns is just not fully healthy, and the Knicks' only other big man in rotation in Precious Achiuwa is 6'8", putting up 6.5 points per game, 6 rebounds, 1 assist, and nearly a block per game as well, along with 1 steal per game, shooting 53% from the field, really 54%, and 36% from 3 on limited attempts. So look, the Knicks would just be severely low on big men. There's no way around it. That's what would happen, and it would just lead to a lot of issues for the team. I mean, clearly the Knicks have had their troubles against the best in the NBA, and Jalen Brunson discussed it, and it's just been discussed a lot about Towns' injury, about how that cannot be helping anything, though teams are kind of the Knicks are kind of keeping that on the low, that's clearly the case. But everything culminated when the Knicks got smacked around by Boston, and Jalen Brunson said, this is unacceptable. We're not where we want to be, and he's absolutely right. The Knicks are not where they want to be, where they're beating most teams, but then when they play the upper echelon of the NBA, the Thunder, the Cavs, the Celtics, the Knicks have not won a game against any of those teams. They're 0-5 against them. They have more games against the Celtics and Cavs coming up soon, and they just have looked outmatched thus far this season when the Knicks are supposed to be NBA Finals contenders. So it's definitely worrisome, and SNY did reveal that on the other two guys, not Karl-Anthony Towns, Tom Thibodeau said that OG Anunoby and Mitchell Robinson both participated in parts of practice. Tibbs said that OG is not being ruled out for tomorrow's game against the Pacers, where he is questionable. Meanwhile, Robinson needs more time as he's still ramping things up. So that'll have an impact on everything, and getting those two back will help because it gives Karl-Anthony Towns less defensive pressure. But still, it's not going to fix the fact that he's shooting 30% from three. I think the All-Star break will help Karl-Anthony Towns a lot. He gets to rest his hand, and it was said that he doesn't need surgery. So if he doesn't need surgery now or after the season, it means his hand is going to heal on its own. But it is going to take some time, and putting the stress on playing basketball and having a high usage is definitely going to make that linger a little bit. So getting this 10-day stretch without basketball. I know he's in the All-Star game, but that hardly counts. It's going to be very helpful for Karl-Anthony Towns, and I really, really am looking forward to Towns getting a break, and all the Knicks. But Towns now dealing with a hand injury, it's clearly impacting the Knicks. They need the version of Karl-Anthony Towns who's been here most of the year, looking like an MVP candidate, all-star starter, all the stuff that Towns has done, he deserves this season. But right now, he is hitting a bit of a slump, and maybe it's just a slump. Maybe it has very little to do with his hand. He's probably thinking about his hand injury, and he's even admitted to it being somewhat of a problem. But he said he's just learning how to play through it, and that will come. He'll figure that out. Players figure out ways to play through playable injuries. I'm trying not to say play 10 million times, but they do. So it'll take some time, but Karl-Anthony Towns absolutely will get there, and it's just concerning. It's why the Knicks need Mitch and OG on the court, because it's just going to give them extra bodies. And outside of Ariel Hukporti, there's really not another 7-foot center there isn't another 7-foot center on the Knicks roster outside of Karl-Anthony Towns and Mitchell Robinson, and both of whom are dealing with injuries. Towns is playable. He'll be back in the next 20 days, less than that, in the next 18 days, because it's sometime in February. So we'll see that. But meanwhile, outside that, we just have Ariel, Washington, Hukporti to hold it down. So look, it's great that the Knicks are going on All-Star break. They desperately need this All-Star break to happen because they are in some trouble. They absolutely are in some trouble because Towns, if he does not start playing better, if these numbers become a little consistent because of his thumb injury, the Knicks are really, really finding themselves in deep, deep trouble, and that is not a good sign for a team trying to make a playoff push. Now, I've said this before about the Knicks, and I'll say it again. This is not the finished product. This team that the Knicks are trotting out is not the finished product. Leon Rose, not shown here, he is evaluating the team this season. He's seeing what this team still needs. What do they need off the bench? What do they need from Tibbs? What do they need in a general sense to succeed? And it's becoming clear what they need is more scoring off the bench and more size off the bench. Now, Mitchell Robinson helps with that a bit because he does give you the size. He doesn't give you the scoring. But if the Knicks do go ahead and sign TJ Warren, well, then they have a problem solved right there. So it's important to note that the Knicks do need this. And look, I love Ariel Hukporti, but I'll be honest, I'm not really convinced that Hukporti is ready to play basketball right now. So getting Mitchell Robinson in there is going to be super helpful because you do get a veteran who's going to hold down the defense and knows how Tom Thibodeau coaches and knows the in and outs of the NBA because he's been on the Knicks for 7 years now. Now, don't get me wrong. This never gets old, watching Ariel Hukporti dunk all over Evan Mobley, and maybe that's how the Knicks beat one of these teams. They just play Hukporti more, because they absolutely should while Mitchell Robinson is not healthy, mind you. I'm not saying don't play Ariel Hukporti. I'm saying play him till Mitch gets back, and then I understand if you're not going to play Hukporti, but still, the Knicks need more big man help because their one true big man who's in the rotation consistently is Towns, who's now injured, and it's clearly hurting this team. So the Knicks have to go about fixing this. It's really, really vital, or they're going to struggle and they're not going to go very far in the playoffs. So the Knicks absolutely need to figure this out. I think they will. It also will just come with time. It's a long recovery for the bone chip and the sprain in your hand to just be fully healed. It's going to throw him off. And on top of his hand just hurting and him thinking about that when he's shooting, it's the thinking about it, which is a problem because when you're hurt, when you're playing with an injury, your mind tends to fixate on that injury and you start to do your movements a little bit different. Especially if it's in your shooting hand, you're going to hold the ball differently. You're going to act differently with that hand. You're going to be more reserved, and it's going to lead to the worst numbers that we've seen Karl-Anthony Towns put up since this injury. So hopefully Towns can get some rest over the All-Star break, and that'll help things out a lot. The Knicks desperately need Towns healthy. They need this team healthy, and once they are, they'll be much better, and they'll be able to dance with any team in the NBA. I'm sure of it. But guys, let me know what you think down below. Are you worried about Karl-Anthony Towns' injury? Should we be worried? Will he be better by the time the playoffs come around? I think he will be, but it is definitely concerning. Guys, like this video, subscribe, turn on post notifications. Have a great day, and go Knicks.